We continue to follow that breaking news from Kyiv. President Biden making a surprise trip to the capital city as Ukraine prepares to mark 1 year since Russia's full-scale invasion. Friday marks the day Russia invaded Ukraine. Dina Smeltz is the Senior Fellow of Public Opinion and Foreign Policy at Chicago Council of Global Affairs, and she is with us live this morning to talk about President Biden's visit and the larger implications of it. Thank you for being with us this morning. You co-authored a study on American support for Ukraine that was released last week. Talk to us about what you found at this pivotal moment as Biden visits that region.
Sure. Well, what my read of the numbers shows is that Americans continue to support Ukraine in terms of our current policy, but there are some questions about how long they're willing to continue that support for as long as it takes, for example, as a lot of the administration officials have been saying. There was recently an AP NORC poll that showed a few drops in support for providing weapons to Ukraine, but there's also been a Fox News poll at the same time, conducted at the same time, that showed that 2/3 of Americans want to continue financial aid and providing weapons to Ukraine. And there has been, the Chicago Council has conducted a poll in late 2022 that found that half of Republicans and majorities of Democrats and independents still support providing financial aid and weapons for Ukraine too. And then across a series of polls, when we asked, when various polling organizations asked whether the United States is giving the right amount of aid, too little or not enough aid to Ukraine, across all the polls, pluralities say that the United States is giving about the right amount. What I do see drops in is when we ask whether Americans are willing to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. In our poll in late 2022, there was a drop from 58% in July to 48% in November that said we should continue to provide aid to Ukraine for as long as it takes for them to reclaim their territory. And the trade-off in the question was about whether Americans are willing to take on costs in their own life in order to support Ukraine continually. So it was more of a question about the indefinite nature of the support, where we see some of these little declines in support, and where the most dramatic drops are among Republicans in the United States.
And what are some of the reasons, Dina, that people are seeing dwindling support? Some of the reasons why they don't want to support Ukraine indefinitely?
So some of it depends on the question wording, what trade-offs are in the questions, and a lot of it is partisan differences. For example, if you asked, how is the Biden administration doing in its performance on Ukraine, that's when partisan differences can rise to the surface. So a large majority of Republicans do not think Biden is doing a good job on Ukraine, but some of that might actually be because they don't approve of the Biden administration on a lot of matters. So that's one area. But one thing that I think might be a drag on support for the indefinite nature of supporting Ukraine for as long as it takes, as in our question, we actually use that language, is that I think there's a perceived stalemate, and it's not just a perception, but there's a stalemate on the battlefield. And a couple polls have shown that when Americans think Ukraine has a military advantage, they are much more likely to support the current policy on Ukraine, as well as continuing support for Ukraine for as long as it takes for them to regain their territory. So perceptions of what's going on in the battlefield help to boost support. Of course, I'm sure that Ukrainian fighters would also like to see the stalemate reversed and them to gain the advantage. But if Americans see that the assistance that the United States has given to Ukraine really makes a difference in their performance militarily, I think then we would see more of an increase in support.
Well, it's interesting you point out the the languaging of as long as it takes. The president said that this morning. Freedom is priceless, and the United States will stay there as long as it takes. Dina Smeltz, Senior Fellow of Public Opinion and Foreign Policy at the Chicago Council of Global Affairs. A lot of information, asking important questions at a critical time. Good to see you. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.